So welcome to our March NAL Talking Circle. Thank you for all joining us. I know some of you are on spring break or just coming back from spring break. So I appreciate you taking that time. And then we're going to go ahead and get disclaimed.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
All right, now that you're all disclaimed, today we're going to do our normal kind of quick intros for everybody. Then we'll head into some reporting reminders, just kind of a touchback to that last APR webinar that we did, and really spend a bulk of our time getting to talk about assessment, about how we're going to be assessing the proficiency and progress of our students in their native language learning. And then follow up with those next steps, some reminders about events that we have coming up, especially making sure that everybody has been able to get registered for the project director meeting coming up the end of April. So we'll go ahead and hop right in. So Jennifer, your program officer, the department has been having a wee bit of trouble with Zoom today. So she will hopefully be able to get in and join us a little bit later in the session, but she's already put in her 2 cents as well, so we'll be able to share that with you. And then joining us from the technical assistance team today. So I know the last couple of talking circles, I've been kind of facilitating the discussion and working with all of you, but we want you to get to know the other members of the TA team as well. So if you have not gotten a chance to meet her yet, today we have joining us Olani Lilly, and she's actually going to be chatting with all of you and working with you as we go throughout our talking circle today. So you'll get to know her a bit better. And with that, I will let Olani take it away.
Hi, aloha everyone. I'm Olani. We're going to do some introductions and just maybe a little sharing about what's happening in your project. Anybody want to, there's only 3 of you guys right now. So, 4. So let's see, anybody want to chime in or start sharing what's happening in your project? Just unmute and go ahead.
I can start. This is Jennifer Irving from Red Cloud Indian School, located in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. And I think we are, like other folks, gearing up to come back to school in person in April. So I think April 12th is the day folks will be coming back, our students, and it'll be a blended in-person virtual approach. And so we're excited about that. And I think in terms of also getting ready for like end of the year assessments and all your, I don't want to say typical school stuff because it doesn't feel typical at all, but that's a little bit about, and of course, like everybody, getting ready for our reporting and all that fun stuff. So putting all that together.
Thanks, Jennifer. John, do you want to share next?
Hey, bonjour, everybody. John Bowling, St. Paul Indian St. Paul Public School. Work with the Indian Education Program. So for the NAL grant, just to kind of share out where we're at and what we've been doing, it's been just a lot of the behind the scenes bureaucracy and red tape to navigate and sort through and get everything aligned so we can just kind of move all that not fun stuff out of the way and get everything set and go forward. So year 1 really has just kind of been that planning year for us. I am interested and do have questions about the assessment piece because that part was written into our project plan. So wondering a little bit if you want like a pre-assessment, because I think that is something that we could probably do with the time we still have left. But we can get into that a little bit later. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John. Susan, are you still on?
I'm on, but I'm not going to share my video because I look horrible.
That's
My eyes are almost swollen shut.
Oh, oh my goodness.
Anyway, so in February, we did our assessment and we used two different online tools. And, for other people to know that our schools are spread across 9 different villages, and we aren't able to travel into those villages with COVID. So I've been teaching online, and one of the tools is like a multiple choice and matching. And so the students, they hear an audio and then they pick the picture that matches it. And so that's using liveworksheets.com. And the next one, we sent out cards to the schools on 5 different topics, and the cards don't say anything, but the students have to hold the card up to the video and say the phrases. For example, they'll hold up the card with sunshine and they'll say Hagadion to respond back. And so yesterday I just got done double checking which students didn't complete the assessment before spring break. When students come back from a village, they have to quarantine. So we had quite a few students out before spring break. So now we'll have to catch those ones up. But for the most part, the teachers have been really good. I keep a checklist of which student complete which assessment, so they'll know to have students get those. And we've been having kind of problems with our cell towers. So some schools don't have great internet, but the provider for the region has been working on those. So we're doing that, as well as thinking about what professional development to have for our teachers. We had a workbook that was made, and now I've got to work on the professional development so that all of the teachers, they'll have the video and audio so that it matches the workbook, so they can use those, especially on days like today when I'm not able to teach. So we have that going on. And then I did reach out to, part of our grant was reaching out to families and to tribes. So we did send a packet of just small posters out to each school, and I'm working on providing the jump drives to the families, so that they can, hopefully if they have computers, they can put those on their computers, and it'll be by topic so they don't have to do too much searching. And on the sound files, it has both the Denaga or Benti, which are our 2 languages, and then the English right in the title of the MP3. So they can practice that with their families. And I was able to go to my hometown, first time in over a year. And my niece and nephew, when I got there, they were sharing the stuff with their mom, and she doesn't know Denaga. And then people from another village said they were practicing with their family, and the kids were teaching the parents. And same thing with the tribes. Some tribes are getting, they have a new program where they can work on language. And so I sent bingo cards out to the tribes to have them play bingo. And one of the villages, they sent me a picture back of the kids playing bingo. And once again, the kids were teaching the adult because they know more than their parents. And I think that's about it on the major parts of what we're working on with the grant.
Awesome, Susan. Sounds like you got a lot going on. I hope for your speedy recovery too.
Oh, thank you.
Sharing. Dara, I think you're up next. If you could share what's happening in your project.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Dara Tabram, and I'm the Dean of Student and Community Engagement at Navajo Preparatory School, which is located in the Four Corners region of New Mexico. We are a college preparatory school residential program. We have an international baccalaureate curriculum, and our huge academic focus is truly Native language immersion, and especially Navajo language and culture. So um, our project so far, we've been chugging along. I think in the realities of the school year, it's been tough. We're just now opening up. We presented to our tribal council yesterday for approval to open up in hybrid mode. And so we are doing a soft reopening along with the Navajo Nation to bring about 25% of our students back starting on Monday. So we're moving, trying to make this happen. But I think one of the wonderful things about this program is that it's truly embedded into the school. So even though we've been virtual, we've been able to maintain and initiate the program in significant ways. We do have a focus on expanding our native language support for students, because of course not all of our students are Navajos. So we've been doing evening programming with Hickory Apache and other tribes, bringing in language support. Our students are currently, actually just last week, I think, completed the bilingual or the seal of Navajo bilingual literacy, which is one of our metrics on the project. And so we're excited to start to get some of those results back. But even more exciting, I think all of you will feel my enthusiasm. We were able to post our job description for the director of the Denepasad Center, actually Institute. We changed it to Institute. So we've been really working on figuring out the plan for how we were going to use or create that position. Has been did. So we were hoping that it would be posted earlier, but then a lot of our potential applicants were already in full-time capacity. So it made sense to start in the next year and then reallocate some of that funding for contract consultants for people who are coming in and doing the work as we get our infrastructure ready. So if you know anybody who would like to apply for a Denepasad directorship, send them on over to Navajo Preparatory School. But we are just so excited because it's truly that umbrella position to support the integration of community engagement and academics. So I couldn't be more excited to share our updates with you all.
Awesome. That sounds exciting for sure. Okay, so I just wanted to, it seems like you guys are in the throe of assessing and putting together your data. Just wanted to give a reminder that APRs are due on May 3rd, 2021 at 4:30. I would encourage you not to wait up until the time of the deadline, because then it does shut down and you won't have access to it on G5. So give yourself enough time, not to mention sometimes there can be glitches in technology, whether it's the internet or even something happening in G5. So just want to encourage you to sort of plan ahead and reduce your stress and increase your peace by getting it in before the actual deadline. And so now this is just a discussion piece. Again, it sounds like you folks are all in the throes of assessing your participants. And so I know Susan was talking, you guys were all sort of touching on how you are doing assessment, but maybe if you could talk a little bit more about the tools and the that you are using to both measure native language progress and proficiency. So let's start with, I guess you can choose which one you want to maybe talk about, whether it's how are you how are you assessing native language progress? What is the tool? What is the methodology that you're using to do that? Progress and proficiency. Anyone want to jump into that conversation or answer that question?
I had a question, and maybe Sarah can help me. So last year we did our assessment. The teachers filled out their Google form on how the students were doing, and so we had like different levels, like if they understood a phrase and if they were able to answer back with their their formulaic phrase, if they were able to make any conversational statements, and then there was another one on songs and stories. So anyway, we did that using the Google Forms last year, where we didn't directly assess the students. So my question is, the year before that, we had the what we were using at that time was VoiceThread, so students could do similar activities, but with just a different tool to this year's. So in measuring that, do we probably compare this year's to 2019? Would that be a correct assumption?
Yes and no. So it's kind of up to y'all as well. And, this might be something even to talk with John and David about. And for those who don't, those are her evaluators. So those of you working with evaluators, those are always great people to use as reference points. But yeah, as far as being able to really compare test results, yeah, you would have to kind of compare your testing from this year to 2019. But in the narrative component, you can also kind of talk to maybe some of the language learning or language gaps that you've seen because of the pandemic, and how you did this alternative assessment last spring, and now you've been able to do your regular assessment this year, and kind of how you're seeing that compare, with what the teachers had reported before. Does that help at all?
That does help. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And as y'all are working on that, as well as, John and David, if you have questions, feel free to reach out.
And I think what Sarah shared with me is this is really you determining what and defining what native language progress is and what is the proficiency level. And so what your baseline is that you're comparing is really something that you're defining for yourselves. So if anybody else wants to maybe share in, or even Susan chime in about, how you're assessing native language progress and proficiency. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, sure, I can go. In St. Paul, Minnesota, here at the St. Paul Public Schools, I'm really proud of the fact that we do offer two distinct native language tracks. One is Ojibwe language, and then one is Dakota language. And the NAL grant that we have here really is focusing on the Dakota language. And for the purpose, because we saw that Dakota language was lagging a little bit behind our Ojibwe language efforts. We wanted to give that a little bit of a boost.
Yeah.
With that said, we have kindergarten, we have pre-K through 12th grade offering in Dakota language, but it's a little bit all over the place. Not quite sure where one grade level ends and the next grade level picks up. The grading and assessing the progress of that question that you're posing right here is really what we want to use the NAL grant to identify.
I see.
Currently, it's really just based off of teacher assessment. There are little resources in language assessment for Dakota. We're truly relying on our teachers to, I guess, whatever methods they find are the best fit for assessment. Now, whether that's having conversation or whether that's a pencil, paper kind of test, really relying on the teachers to provide that assessment. What we want to do is develop that assessment that's a little bit more I guess, I don't want to say the word standardized, but a standard-like assessment, if I could say it that way. One
Yeah.
that we can all agree on is one model that we've agreed to use, but then doesn't really overlap from one grade level to the next. And so there is progress. And then we're really able to capture that and get a good sense where our students are at.
Yeah. Awesome. So you folks are really in the process of figuring out how to assess both the native language progress and proficiency. And you're going to be using some of the current tools, or looking at what the current teachers are currently doing to sort of be a way to figure some of that out.
We're partnering with a local Dakota language resource agency that is going to be developing those assessments for us.
Okay, awesome.
I would imagine that we'll have input from teachers as well for that.
And John, I know you mentioned you had an assessment question. Was it in regards to, if you're in development of your assessment, how to report on those on your APR currently?
Yes, that was exactly my question. Should I just indicate on the APR that, what was it, 999 code?
So I wouldn't go 999, and I'll tell you why. If you go 999, that's indicating that you're going to have data available by September 30th, 2021. And I'm not thinking, based on your proposal, that your assessment's going to be ready quite that quickly, because that's going to be part of your process. So what I would do is look at, you said your teachers are doing assessments, and that, you know, yeah, it might be each teacher's doing a different type of assessment, but they are doing something to figure out in their individual language classrooms how students are progressing. Use that, because what it's asking in GEPR 1 is how many of your students have become proficient. Have your teachers provide you with what they consider how many of their students are proficient in Dakota currently, and how they've come to determine that. And yeah, you might have 4 different teachers using slightly different methods, but what you'll do is you'll record that aggregate number. So maybe out of the 100 students being served by those 4 teachers, maybe they consider 20 of them age appropriately language proficient. Report that, and then in your explanation of progress, explain, currently, this teacher is doing this, this teacher is doing this, this teacher is doing that. As our project, we're looking to make one cohesive test that all the teachers can use, so that they can all be speaking the same language in regards to assessment, so that when they're, you know, talking about, here's how my kids are progressing, they're all looking at the same data, because that's a big part of your project. And you'll continue reporting that way. And that way, you know, you're not just reporting zeros all the time, because your teachers are still working hard teaching and instructing, and the kids are making progress. And then once you have your new assessment, then you'll move to that and you'll explain that. And same thing for GEPR 2 when you're talking about progress. Just have your teachers report, this is how we have been looking at progress. This is how many of my students I feel like have progressed this spring, you know, since the grant has started. And do the same thing, explain that in that explanation of progress. And then when you're able to move to your new test, then you'll do that then.
Excellent. So this year 1 data will pretty much basically serve as a baseline, are we looking at?
Well, you'll actually this year.
Even though it really won't be comparable to the assessment once it's developed.
Correct. Yeah. Now, one thing to think about is that everybody on your APR, and this is, you know, for everyone, you'll be reporting baseline data, and you'll be reporting year 1 data on that APR that's due May 3rd. So for your baseline data, for many of you, you know, if you didn't really have a program specifically going prior, your baseline data may be that 0 students were proficient and 0 kids were making progress because they weren't engaged in a language program at that point. If you did have a language program already, then you could look at either, if you have an assessment that happened prior to October 1st, this school year, you could use that as your baseline. Or for a lot of folks, it's going to end up being your baseline from the 2020 school year. Because for a lot of people, that was the last time that you really had any data. So, you know, that's one other thing that is a little bit different than how you may report for other grants. But with this one on May 3rd, you'll report baseline data. And then the next line, you'll report that year one data, which is your October 1 to March 31 data, just that first 6 months of the project.
So did I hear you say that if we don't have data, we could use the prior year data, whatever is the most recent we have?
For your baseline.
For the baseline, okay.
Yes, yes.
That data I know already exists and maybe a little bit just easier to capture for me. And if I could use it, that would simplify things a little bit.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine to use as baseline data.
All right. Very good, thank you.
Well, and I have to hop to another webinar, so I'm going to let Alani keep chatting and discussing with you. I appreciate you all sharing, and I'll see you next time, but enjoy the conversation together.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, next person, anybody want to share how you're going to be assessing your native language progress and proficiency?
I can talk a little bit about how Red Cloud is. I wish Matt Rama was on the call, but he's in class with the students right now. I know they've been utilizing the, I don't know how you say, ACTFL. I think it's the American Council on Teaching of Foreign Languages or something like that. And so that's kind of how they've been assessing some progress, especially of like written and oral. I know he's been working with folks in the region too to do more, I guess, I don't know how to say this, but like more regional specific assessment in terms of like cultural, you know, like not just the language, right? But like, how do we assess if our kids are learning culture as well? Because so much of it's not just about the technical learning of the language, right? Like you can learn to write it, but there's also these stories you get told, you start to learn different things. So how do we assess that? You know, how do we assess our students' progression in terms of their culture? I mean, we can see it, right? Like we can see it, but how do we assess it?
Right.
So, you know, when we see all of our young men come to school and all their hair is long, like nobody told them to do that. Nobody told them, it's just they've picked these things up through stories and they realize like as a Lakota person, as a Lakota young man, it's important my hair is long. Because my hair connects me to the creator and connects me to Mother Earth, right? So like they just do, so you notice all the boys in our classrooms have long hair, you know, like, so, I mean, but do you assess that? Like, how do you assess that? Anyway, but I wish Matt was here because I know they're coming up with some really creative ways through some of the apps that they're building, you know, so they can see some of those kind of more tangible, technical progression. But yeah, I know for sure they've been using ACTFL to go from fluency, right? So we're hoping to take kids to intermediate high. I know there's different scales. I think it's like distinguished, advanced. These are probably all out of order, so I apologize. Intermediate, novice, and we're really hoping to move our kids from novice to intermediate high. So that they're not just speaking the language, but they're writing in the language and that they're learning in the language and they're retaining in the language. So that's the hope.
Yeah.
Actual is the technical
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's right. I mean, I think when you talk about culture, it's really getting creative with that type of assessment, like you said. And right, I think also like looking back into your history and your practices to pull out how it was assessed, you know, prior to, and looking at those models as well. That's awesome. And in the community. Thanks for sharing. Dara, how are you folks doing with assessing the native language, your progress and proficiency?
Yeah, I'm like Jennifer. I wish our one of our head Navajo language teachers was here because I'm just hearing everything he's told me, and I'm hearing it in what you said as well, Jennifer. So it's cool to see the overlaps. But just like Jennifer said, our Navajo language department's philosophy is never teach language in isolation. It's always language and culture. And we've been working, and by we I mean our Navajo language speakers and teachers have been working really tremendously to develop a 4-year curriculum. So they've been doing a lot with the vertical alignment and in-class assessments, just like John shared with his schools. And so we're kind of looking also for those culminating summative assessments to help us to determine fluency, and that's where we really found some support through this bilingual literacy seal, which is offered through the Navajo Nation and also through the state of New Mexico, but for Navajo languages through the nation. And so we're using that as a summative assessment. But I think as a teacher, and more importantly, the work is in this constant short cycle assessments, and that's the work that we're doing within our own school, and we're developing our own curriculum to do that to support the initiative. I think we're really supported by the policies of our school in that all students are required to take 4 years of Navajo language and culture. So we have the students in the classrooms, and now it's about really ensuring that our curriculum and assessments are aligned to support their learning over 4 years. So we're moving ahead in this way, and I can't wait until next year when you'll also have our project director on the call, because this will be their forte in really sharing these practices with the group.
Awesome. So that person's responsibility to sort of work with your Navajo language teachers department, is that right?
Yeah, so the way that we structured our part of our project is that the majority of our language acquisition takes place within the classroom. But I think if we're talking immersion, because I know that's one of the purposes of this grant, I think we have maybe like 12.5 to 15% immersion, depending if you're a day student or residential, where students are in Navajo language, predominantly speaking classes or times within their school day. So our goal is to not just offer Navajo language and culture within the school day and the classes, the language class, but always also through our residential program, our after school program, our evening programs, and to really create a way to bring our programs a little bit more holistically into the experience of the school. And so that's where our project director will really live in that space of the connection between academics, residential, and programming. So we're really excited for this person to be a support to the teachers with assessment development, but then also to be a support to a residential in developing additional programming for native language acquisition. So yeah, we're really excited for some of the work that will be done. But even more than that, I think it extends beyond this grant project itself, but the creation of resources that can be used across the Navajo Nation to support Navajo language acquisition in other schools is another goal of our center and institute. So when we do this work, we're thinking, how can we share it? How can we make it better? And how can it be transferable?
Mhm. Wow, that's awesome. A model.
We hope. We're a small school, but we know that we're doing things with a lot of intentionality, and our hope is that that work can be used by others to support. I think we all share the same goals.
Yeah. Yeah, and what an opportunity to have, I see it as an opportunity to have a residential aspect to your program, because I know I was a principal at a Hawaiian language immersion school, and what we were trying to deal with was that the language wasn't becoming solely an academic language where it only occurred in the classroom. And so we were trying to find opportunities for happen outside of school. And so having that residential piece is really, it's a nice opportunity for sure. to develop language outside of the academic setting.
It also allows us to bring together students from over 52 different communities. So it allows students to share cultural knowledge that is
Yeah,
also place-based.
yeah, great. So have you folks, are you, maybe you're working on this or maybe you've done this already. Have you defined what proficiency is? And is your definition by grade level or are you just looking at maybe time chunks as and developmental stages related to proficiency? How are you folks defining proficiency? I know sometimes in school, it can be just, can be defined within grade level. So by the time you finish third grade, you should be this level of proficiency. And then in some other programs, it's like a developmental stage, maybe a range between a particular age and another age where you're developing your expected of proficiency, because sometimes little kids pick it up faster, and so I'm just wondering, how are you defining proficiency?
Well, I could share out in St. Paul, we have not got to that level yet. That was part of our rationale for pursuing the NAL grant to assist us in getting to that level. Um, I know that we're a large district. We're offering this language only at one elementary, middle school, and high school.
Mhm.
I could see us after this grant though, and with the support of this grant, expanding that beyond that school. To the other school buildings in our district, because there's other Native children out there as well.
Yeah.
So we are not. It's not an immersion school where we're at. I know that our community and our parents have voiced a desire to become an immersion school, and we've explored that. And I did not realize this before, but there's several types of immersion,
Right.
and we had to figure out which immersion school kind of worked best for what we have the capacity for.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to do a full blown immersion.
Right.
Being just one school in a larger district.
Mhm.
We looked at a dual language model, and then we also looked at a heritage immersion model.
Mhm.
So haven't quite figured that out. It's going to be one of the two.
Yeah.
But whatever those models that we choose on will probably determine where those proficiency levels in. So
Awesome.
just to give you a kind of sense and feel about where we're at in that process.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what, after the grant period is finished, the amazing program and products you would have developed through this time. So that's exciting. I know that there's some new people who've just recently joined us. What we're doing is we're just sort of sharing how you will be assessing native language progress and proficiency, um, just sort of gearing up for the APR that's upcoming. If anyone who's just joined us wants to share how you are assessing native language progress and proficiency, can take a couple more minutes. I hear somebody.
Hello, this is Leah Whitford. We're with Browning Public Schools.
Hi.
And Robert is the PD, Robert Hall, and he's we're trying to connect to our big
Oh.
screen. So as soon as he connects, we'll address that. How's that?
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Let's see. While we're waiting, we have.
I could add in another piece of thought.
Okay. Yes.
If you allow. It's something that Jennifer had mentioned that I really wanted to bring out in support. one of the other issues that we came across is that while there is Dakota language, it's not the same in every reservation, and
Yeah.
it's not the same in every community. And so it was really hard for us to develop kind of an assessment that everybody could agree upon. And we kind of found that out with our Ojibwe as well, while we were trying to develop those bilingual seals for the state, because that's another desire I guess we want our kids to really get credit for the language that they do know. But I just wanted to share that I've experienced that trouble and seen that as well.
Yeah.
Native language. So we really got our work cut out for us here, guys.
Yeah.
Should I share ours or?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was gonna show my screen, but that's okay. So through one of these other webinars, we had borrowed from one of the grantees a few years ago. And so they had like rubrics. And for example, on the greetings, 0 is only they know how to say "doint," which means "how are you," and then 1 is if they do a 1-sentence greeting, and 2 is if they do like a memorized greeting and they address people respectfully, and 3 is basic greeting of people and feelings. 4 greetings of people and conversation on weather, and 5 is like a brief discussion of current events, and it isn't by grade level, which it kind of should. Our schools are multi-grade, but it's possible if we wanted to expand this that we could do it by grade level. And so we have those basic rubrics, and then we developed using that in mind, developed our assessments, and then we developed the tools, which is live worksheets and the Flipgrid video, and then we record it all on Google Sheets. And we do have 2 languages, Denaga, which is Koyukon Athabascan, and Benti, which is Lower Tanana Athabascan. So those are 2 distinct languages, but within the Denaga, we have upper dialect, central Yukon River, central Koyukuk River, and lower. So we did have to develop the assessments. They're similar. The questions and the answers, responses are the same, but the language that the students feedback are different based on their language and dialect.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Great rubric. Let's see. Leah or Robert, are you ready to share?
Yes.
Okay.
So one thing that we're working on is we just hired an individual to come in to help us design an assessment, and along with that, one of the things that we're doing right now is we're just designing Kahoot tests at the time being to get that digital input, but also too we're investing in creating a curriculum that corresponds to a methodology called ASLA, Accelerated Second Language Acquisition, developed by an Arapaho PhD. He's a professor at University of Montana named Neyache Gray Morning. And so we're trying to basically meet and figure out how are we going to meet the 50-50 standard within our immersion class, while also understanding and respecting the status of our language and even the skill set of our teachers, but providing them a toolkit that will enable them to teach the language. The wonderful thing about ASLA is that it's constant assessment for the teacher as you're going, and it's live assessment. So the struggle is, how do we assess it so that we can measure it on paper rather than all oral? And what we're doing again is we're going through these skill sets of ASLA and simultaneously working along with writing the language and getting literacy going. Because with literacy, that's when you could get these assessments in a better, in a more proficient manner, if you will. And basically, we're creating workouts, worksheets that correspond to the ASLA lesson plans that again will be able to measure our students and how they are and how they could translate the language and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Sounds like amazing work, exciting work for
Oh, it's
sure.
very exciting. Yeah, we got our team going. It's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's kind of fun, right? You kind of nerd out on that kind of stuff. It's exciting too. All right, so I'm gonna thank you folks for all sharing sort of how you are assessing native language progress and proficiency. I'm going to move on. Oh shucks, there we go. So just to let you know, again, remind you about the NAL ED Padlet. This is where you can go in and um, put down any kind of trainings you want to see, maybe more topics that maybe we've kind of touched on, but you'd like to go more in depth. This is where you can go ahead and put that in. And we check this regularly to see what's happening. The other thing is if you are creating tools that you'd like to share with your peers, you could go ahead and do that. Let's um, Sarah, do you have the link for that? If we could put that in. If not, I will make sure that we get the link.
No, I don't.
I will make sure we get the link emailed out in the follow-up email. Okay, so you can access that. And then sort of what's coming up. So sorry, one second. Continue to brainstorm and share on the Padlet. The next talking circle for NAL is April 29th. Make sure that's on your calendar. We again have a series, various distance learning trainings coming up. The next one will be on small group engagement, how you utilize online tools to engage in small groups. Then virtual field trips will be then. The third one is games and more. So how do you create games, educational games to, again, around student engagement. And then the next one is student engagement. And then our final distance learning, or the next distance learning in June, will be a virtual share fair. And so this is where we're just going to be sharing how we are using these tools and other ways that you can use these tools. And then, excuse me, on April 29th, we're going to be having the NAL office hours. Again, that's this sort of a open platform where if you have questions regarding your grant, that's the time to sort of stop in. Again, I really want to encourage you to start to gear up, and it sounds like you're doing your assessments and gearing up for the APR. So that'll be a good sort of touch place if you have any questions regarding your APR. And then of course we have the project directors meeting. All of your project directors should have received the invite. I really want to encourage you, or encourage, if you're not the project director, to make sure you get the project director to register. You have 3 people that can participate per grant. So if you have multiple grants with OIE, that is 3 people per grant. If you just have the NAL grant, then you can have the project director and then 3 other people. But really, I want to encourage you to get in and start to register. That project directors meeting will be happening Tuesday through Thursday, April 20th to the 22nd, from 1 to 6:15 p.m. Eastern time. There's going to be some workshops as well as keynote speakers or session speakers. And then at the close of the day, there'll be some sessions where you can meet with some of the session presenters, as well as to do some follow-up work. And so really action-oriented sessions. do any of you folks have questions? I might not have the answer, but I will take down the question if I don't have the answer and get the question to you. Additionally, before you go, if you could take a moment to complete a survey. Sarah has posted that survey in the chat. Any questions?
Is there like a proper schedule that you guys email us with all this information?
Yes, Sarah would have emailed you the project director the schedule. I will make a note if you are not receiving and get that to her to make sure your program receives notice.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know, Robert. Okay. Okay, so a short poll should be popping up to let us know, if you could let us know if this was beneficial or not for your program. It's a 2-question poll. And then, is that not coming up, Sarah, or are we not? Oh, there we go.
User error on my end. I'm sorry.
No problem. Just had a delay. So again, if you could take a minute, not even to fill that out, that'd be really helpful. The survey that Sarah Whitehead has posted a link in the chat asks additional questions, and those questions really help us. Again, your feedback around that help us to deliver content that is important to you in a way that makes sense for you. So that your feedback is really helpful. I really want to encourage you. Again, here's the contact information regarding who you can contact on the grant side, as well as if you have any questions regarding maybe your technical assistance, anything that we've discussed in trainings, maybe you want to know the schedule, you can go ahead and email us at oie@seiservices.com. I'm going to end the poll. And the other thing is I want to encourage you that when you do send a communication via, whether it's email or maybe you're calling and leaving a message, make sure that you leave your PR number and put the PR number in the subject heading. Again, some of you have multiple grants, so it's really helpful for the program people as well as the technical assistants to know which grants you are sort of talking from. Usually the PR number begins with the letter S. So you want to make sure you're putting in the right number. Again, thank you for your time and your participation and sharing all of the amazing things you folks are doing in regards to assessment. And just want to wish you folks all a wonderful day, rest of your day. And definitely, Susan, I hope you get better. Have a quick recovery. Thank you for participating. Bye. Have a great day.
That's it. And that's a cool.
Aloha.
Bye. Thank you.